Hello and welcome to another update on our game. We're going to look at some coding changes that I've made and two of the levels that we've started. This is Eric's level currently. Um, Recently he had asked me to, we were trying to go for a puzzle type game as well as a shooter. So he wanted these little elements here to shoot up fire, damage the player and turn themselves off and on, so you can kind of weave your way through that. So by doing that, you have uh, you have an attack cooldown, which will say damage the player for this amount of time. Every time it hits zero point 0.5 seconds, and and then use the modifier here to take that much off of him. So zero point 0.5 durability off the player. Um, then you have the flame cooldown, right? Which is each of these elements is instantiated, so it's its own version of the base class, of this environment hazard. So all of them are different. You can change them and you can randomize them. So which I did add, and I'll show that. So we'll show a little demo of what happens here. So they'll start up. We'll grab this one to look at. So as you see, it's initially set to 5 seconds. When it gets to 5 seconds, it'll turn the particle system off and the sound off. And it'll also turn the collider that damages the player. You see the box collider here is what detects if the player is over top of it or not, right? So if you go to a random timer now, you click that wall. We'll look at this random number 5. Now it's 2. Now it's 3. So now that adds that randomization. So the player can't really predict when this thing is coming on or not, right? And you can turn it back off and whatnot. So by doing this, let's take a look at that class. I'm going to expand on it a little bit more. So you're getting the audio. The audio source, actually, this is for, I want to use this environment hazard class for a lot of things. But for this current example, we're not using the audio source on this object. We are using the audio source from the particle system, right? So particle system is off, right? Here's the script. So the start particle script is called in the fixed update. You keep running this, right? So if the flame timer, whatever it is, plus equals time.delta time, start counting, right? And now I got this condition. If the random timer is true, we're going to create a random number between 1 and 10 here, right? And throw that in, okay? So then we got the normal version of it. What you do if there is no random timer, right? It's just going to take the value specified by the player or by the person who's editing it in the editor and use that, right? And so it just reverses that bool. Flame bool is not, if it was true, it's not true now. It's false, and that's the toggling effect, right? And so you're turning off the flame, you're turning off the collider, and there you go. So that becomes that, and set active, and then the particle system is then the opposite of what it was as well. So it'll be, if it's true, it's false. So that falls into play there. So here's the on trigger event. So this is what damages the player. So same kind of logic. Time.time is less than our cooldown timer, right? And then you have to, once it gets in there, like this says return, it'll just, all right, we're not going any further. But if it does happen, then you got to set that cooldown timer. You go time.time what the current time is, plus an additional well, in this case it would be 5 seconds because that's our attack cooldown by default. Then get the player component, because we're only looking for if this collider has a component of player, the player class, then call the take damage method that I've created on it and give it the damage modifier, whatever you want to give it. If you want it to hurt them twice per 2 points each time, whatever. So you do that. Another change I made is with the enemies. I haven't fully implemented it yet though, but every enemy would derive from like enemy class, right? And it was separate. So I was creating this droid class, which has nothing in it, but you could make changes and modify it. And I have an interface. I have an interface as well. But anyway, everything was deriving from enemy, and you make your changes to droid if the enemy had any special abilities, right? But I wanted them all to derive from character, which is the player's class, right? Because I want them to actually have the same abilities as the player, right? So the player has the ability he has an inventory, he can pick up weapons, he can pick up equipment, right? And items. I wanted the same abilities for the enemy. So there had been a lot of modifications for that because for our equipment manager, that handles the equipment, right? Where is it? Equipment manager. So this gets attached to the player, and anyway, it creates a list, and this is where we keep our equipment. And I wanted you have to make some changes here because it has inputs, right? It's looking for you to push Q to cycle the next equipment index, right? But if every enemy in the game has this, then as soon as you push that, it's going to switch their inventory slot or their equipment slot. You don't want that, right? So I had to go through, and now if you detect if this is the player, the equipment manager will detect if it is the player, and it does that by looking at the root of the object, and it says if it's get component.player or whatever, then it knows, and then this value is player is set to true. And if it is, then it will go through this, because this is if not is player, then return, then don't do any of this, right? So if this is the enemy, none of this gets run, which is fine. On collision enter, I didn't have to make much changes here because this is just you run over the equipment if it has to have a collider, it has to have the component equipment. The equipment class, then it'll pick it up. Then it'll start all this to pick it up, right? It checks if it's in the inventory first or whatnot, and then adds it to the list. So we're just getting reference, adds it to our equipment list, right? Equipment.add. We specified the equipment and a temporary variable there, and it's going to assign it. So we're just adding it. So this will happen for the enemy as well. As he runs over it, he's going to pick these things up as well, right? And then, so what I needed to do here, this is for the equipment panel to show it, right? I'm just saying update the equipment panel and change the color from to cyan, right? And if it's an active, if it's the active equipment, then change it to yellow, just for a visual, just to say, hey, this is what equipment you currently have, even though you can see it on their back, whatever. This attaches it to the back because on each enemy or player you have a back empty object, and this is where the transform gets set. So you're setting the parent to the back transform on this object, right? And if it doesn't have it, then it's going to look funny. It's going to just plop it right in front of them, right? And it's going to follow them. But you know, whatever. I just put that in there. But really, they should all have a back if they're going to have this class. And maybe I can do that actually with the equipment manager. If I don't detect a back, right, I can create one. You know, uh, this is just code for switching the inventory slot. Anyway, so we have that, and so he gets the equipment manager now. For test enemy, so we'll go over test enemy. This is the test class, right? And this is everything enemy would have, right? All his values, the rotation speed, attack cooldown, all that. But we have other classes that will derive from this, right? So you start with character, right? And then you branch off. Is it a character? I mean, is the player or is the enemy? Then from there you can go further. You can go, okay, this enemy is boss. So he's going to derive from um, the test enemy, which I'll rename later, but also inherits character stuff, right? Unless you want to omit that, because you can. Like for test enemy, we have this. For the awake, you have in character you have an awake called public virtual, and this is how you do it. You specify that this use this, but it could be modified. It could be overwritten, right? And so what we do here is we call this an override now. We go public override. We wanna use the original. Well, not necessarily. You don't have to, right? This override means you can don't do anything from the original and do your own stuff. But what I'm doing here is I'm adding on to. I'm saying call the base class, right? Call everything that was in wake, and then call this stuff as well. Right? Because we need these extra things that the character doesn't have, because he doesn't have a fire point 1 and 2, because his weapon systems are handled by the individual weapon. Right? The fire point is actually on different spots on the weapon where these aren't. And I can go further with that because I still haven't hooked up the weapon systems. Like they could the enemy actually could pick up the weapons as well and use them if they wanted, but not all of them have arms, and so I have to look into that later. Anyway, so we call it, we have our enemy AI, a finite state machine, so you have different states, so you segregate it all out. You go, in idle, this is only what he's allowed to do when he's in this state, and we can switch this on the fly, you know, and just a whole bunch of other stuff anyway. So this is Eric's level, so you initially start over here, you come through so far, and you have this corridor, which, so I made this other script, right, this door script, so you attach this to your doors, and you have a key card here, right? So if it is locked, if you click it locked and you drag a key card from somewhere in the level, we've created prefabs for them, right? You create that, you drag it right in here, and then place it somewhere in the level, right? It's the exact item variant. Like you need that exact one, right, to open this door, which is pretty cool, right? And yeah, so, and once that happens, that door will open, right? I don't know if I can, maybe I can run this. Where's the player actually on here? He's the player start position right in front of it, I think. So if you look down here, you come near it. Oh, let me see. He must have set something different. Oh, do you know why? Because I just clicked lock on it, didn't I? Yeah. Take that off because we don't want it to be locked. So it opens up. That's our inventory over there. Okay, so let's check. Let's save this and let's go over to my level that I'm working on. And I am doing the second level. So his, we'll go over to here. This will be the end, right? You got the train here. Eventually you'll get there for whatever he has planned. You'll eventually get there, and then it'll lead into my level. and my level will start at the train, you know, coming out of it. Right. So we'll go to level 2. So this is my level that I'm working on. So what you'll be able to do, so you'll start over here. Excuse me. So you'll start over here, play will start over here, and he'll work his way through, right? And I got those assemblers set up in a location over here. There is a mesh attached to it, but I don't have the mesh because I just want it invisible. I just want to spawn enemies, right? So it's going to spawn a couple enemies here, and I think there's some already there. Yeah, there is there, one there. There's one here. So that's the goal, is to come through here, come in here, and you can see it right here is a little key card. All right, we're going to click that. There's the key card right there. So, following what I was talking about before about the doors, you go down here, and here's my door, right? So if I wanted, and I already have it attached, so I have the door locked, right? And I already dragged it in here. So if that's part of the item manager as well for the player, as soon as he walks over it, he'll pick it up. He'll throw it in his inventory, and then this door will check. It'll check for that, right? You go to the door script, it goes on trigger enter. So far it's just the player, right? It checks, is this the player? And if it is, the inventory manager is actually a separate instance not attached to the player. Unlike the equipment manager, which is on the player, the inventory manager is a game object that's in the scene. And what happens there is it'll cycle through this for each. It's just like a for loop, right? It cycles through the inventory looking for what we want, which is item equals key card specific. Though this key card is specific to the one that I have dragged here. That's why it's made public item, because you can drag it in there and it needs that exact one, right? And yeah, so it'll set the door, it'll do all this stuff. Anyway, it'll open it, and then you go in here, and there's, well, maybe I'll throw a guy in there or whatever. Come over here, we'll have a couple guys over here, you know, doing some stuff. Cross the bridge. Now here's where it gets fun. So comes over, he crosses the bridge, and I'll demo this for you because you can't really see it here. I have a gate underneath here, right? And I've created another door trigger, which I'll combine with the other door. It's getting a little messy, but what this trigger does is, let's see if I can select it. Search by boss door. Yeah, right there. Okay. So what this door does is it allows you to drag in not a key card like the other one, but a boss or an enemy or anything. It could be anything that you want to trigger. So you run through this door, this trigger, right? And the trigger, it's hard to see. It's right here. It's this. You'll see it kind of right there. As soon as you go over there, this door will come up, and you can't go back, right? And what happens is it triggers this guy. This guy I built out of all the parts from my other enemies I made, right? He's like a mixed, mashed version of them, right? He just throws all their parts together. So let's try this out. All right. Click play. Let me go full screen for this. All right. I don't think I baked all the light mapping and stuff. Maybe not. So anyway, come over here. Oh, and these are the other changes I've made. Like you can now aim. So you see the rotation in his body. So as you're moving around the tank, you can still like aim as well. So you come through here. This is closed. And here he comes, right? He's coming after you, and he's aiming at you. That little red thing is just his fire point indicator. But anyway, I'll have a gate here, and later, and you won't be able to come up here until you destroy him, right? So there's another trigger then, right? You add that, you come up here, and I have a speed boost actually attached to this guy. Come up here, and this is be the spaceport, which will take you to the next level, right? I don't think he can come up. Oh, no, I don't think he can come up there. Anyway, so that's that part. A lot of these things I've been learning a lot in Blender, so I've been working with texturing and how I created just recently a texture atlas, which is pretty cool, where you can grab different assets from. If this wall wanted some of this one, you can do that, right? And you share resources, kind of, because you don't. The goal is to keep it as small as possible and optimize your textures, right? These lava fields also, I have that environment hazard script, same one, right? Might have to look at the code now because it might affect us now, because it won't be looking for, there won't be a particle system. Let me check that. Any errors? Yeah, and there would be, because what I changed on the other one, the particle system, it's looking for it, right? And the other one has it. See, so it's looking for this particle system, right? So you need to normally do a check, right? First, you go, well, okay, only do this if this PS is not equal to null, right? Yeah, and that'll get rid of that problem there. So every time you change something with one of the scripts, there's like it's always going to affect something else somewhere else. But that's part of it. So, and this won't need the particle system, right? And the lava actually doesn't need this timer. So you'll put in a bowl even for that. Are we even doing this? Or we don't need to actually have those events happening. We don't need the fire to come up because it's lava, and so on. Just any other ones are coming out of here. Just hazard. So render. I think it's basically all the same. Assertion failed. Fix that. Something about we'll see. Anyway, as you see in our log here, we're spawning enemies. So the assemblers are doing their job. Let's see where they are. There's one over here. Let's see. So he spawned an enemy there, right there. And they won't spawn any more than 2, right? Until I end up killing them or whatever. Other code changes I've made, I mean, yeah, a lot of the equipment systems, like, so when you pick up this this rocket launcher, now you can shoot it, right? But obviously now the enemy will be able to pick it up as well. If he gets there first, he'll pick it up and he'll use it against you, right? If you go to his class, I don't know if I have that set up for him yet, but the rocket pack. So this derives from equipment class, so you have equipment and then you have special things that happen with this equipment, because the rocket isn't the same as our jetpack, and the jetpack isn't the same as a shield, and so on, right? So you go in here, perform action rocket state. This is where he actually does it. He starts firing, but this is also for the player, right? So you have to go in here. So I think I have it set up. So if it is equipped, right? This is the key too, is say you picked up 5 weapons, then, and you're pushing fire, all of them are going to shoot, right? So you need, like, that's what the weapon manager is for. As soon as you pick it up, it'll activate it, put it as the active item, but all the rest have to be disabled. So it goes through your list and disables them. So anyway, this goes only if it's equipped, do this, right? Only if the bool is checked equipped. Then if it's the player, right, because you don't want And it happened originally when I rewrote this code. I'm pushing space, and he's firing at me with his own rockets. But anyway, so that does that. Then you have an else if test enemy. What we're gonna do is we're just gonna, depending on the cooldown timer, whatever you set it at, shoot it, right? In addition to his normal attack, he's gonna have this rocket pack shooting at you for a set number of times, because in this perform action, you have a projectile count, right? And it has to be greater than 0. So once you hit 0, then you can't do it anymore. So that's the rocket pack. Jetpack here. Jetpack currently works with just the player. I mean, I haven't messed around with it for the enemy, and I don't know if I will. We'll see. Nano repair kit. That's a new thing I just added. So you have your shield pack that protects you with a shield. But this nano repair pack repairs your durability of the player, right? This will also work with the enemy though, as well. It'll repair his durability as well over time at the expense of your battery. And explain a bit more about that later. But you're kind of constantly managing not just durability. You're managing your battery power as well, because everything you're doing costs that. You're boosting. You're doing a speed boost. You're using energy. You're shooting with the weapons given to you. You're using energy. So you have to constantly balance this. And there is rechargers that I have in this, and not in this scene. I will add them in, but in the game that I've made that will recharge your battery. Or I have batteries that you can throw out throughout the level that will increase your battery, right? So you're managing that as well. Equipment cabinets, bridge, environment. Yeah, I think that's about it. But yeah, so it's coming along pretty good. My goal is to finish this level, have Eric finish off his, connect them too, because I do have a level manager that manages that, and so it'll just go to the next level, which will be mine, with an intermission in between. And yeah, that's it, and we'll continue working on, and hopefully I'll have some more updates. All right, thank you.